Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And there has been a lot of attention when it comes to patch notes related to Blizzard, whether it be the Diablo 4 debacle or now the Mythic Plus shenanigans in terms of class balance. We have had a massive update for not only PvE, but also PvP. There's a lot of cool spells that were previously cast to the side that you ignored and forgot about that are receiving big buffs in this patch that you should pay attention to. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with changes like this, smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated on my journey to 100,000 subscribers. But let's get started. There is a lot to go through here. In response to player feedback and internal data, we've developed the following class tuning changes to address several over and underperforming classes. These adjustments will be applied to the live game with scheduled weekly maintenance on Tuesday, July 27th in this region. Blood DK is receiving a 10% damage across the board buff. This may see some implications in PvP, as I have seen some players picking up blood in PvP. For Guardian specifically, Ursoc's Fury Absorb Shield has been reduced to 50% of the damage dealt by Thrash and Maul. It was previously 60%. For Augmentation Evokers, a lot of attention on this specialization when it comes to both PvE and PvP. Developers notes, Augmentation is overperforming in dungeons and is doing less direct damage than intended relative to the power of their buffing effects. These adjustments will increase their personal damage in all situations and moderately reduce the effectiveness of their buffs in dungeon content. Closest clutch mates now causes Ebon Might and Breath of Eons to be 20% more effective when not in a raid. It was previously 40%. This is going to have implications on PvP. Fixed a bug where closest clutch mates would not increase the evoker's damage done via Ebon Might for periodic effects such as Fire Breath, so a bug fixing a little bit more personal DPS. Ebon Might now increases the evoker's damage by 20% up from 10. Eruption is receiving a flat out 40% damage increase buff. Fate's mere chance to occur has been reduced to 15% down from 20, and Aspect's favor amplifies Black Attunement to 7 and 10% maximum health down from 10 to 16. So some utility changes and damage shifting for the spec. I don't see anything targeting Upheaval, which is like the big damage hitter in PvP. We'll have to wait for the PvP section to see that specifically. Beast Mastery Hunters are getting some love. 15% damage for Barb Shot, Cobra Shot, and Kill Shot. It may be a good time to check out Beast Mastery Hunter if you've been putting that one down for a while, because those are some pretty big numbers. For Marksmanship Hunter, Trick Shot, Aim Shot, and Rapid Fire Ricochets are now going to deal 65% of their normal damage, was previously 55%. And for Survival, Mongoose Bite and Raptor Strike are receiving 5% damage buffs. Flanking Strike is receiving a 10%, and Kill Command is receiving a 10%, so a moderate damage increase for Survival Hunter as well. For Brewmaster Monk, damage of Spinning Crane Kick will be reduced by 20%, and damage of Keg Smash will be reduced by 5%. For Windwalkers, surprisingly, some of these are coming through in PvP, and it's because of a big change in the PvP section for them. Rising Sun Kick damage is going to get a 10% increase. Fist of Fury will get a 10% increase, but not in PvP. Blackout Kick will get a 10% increase in damage, and Tiger Palm will get a 15% increase in damage. It is surprising to see buffs to damage for Windwalker, considering they're most represented melee DPS, and they are becoming really strong, but you'll see with the PvP changes why this is so. Protection Paladins, you're getting an 8% damage increase. Prop Pally, sadly, it is viable in PvP, and this is actually making it even more viable. For Discipline, Luminous Barrier Absorption is going to be increased by 30%. I don't think you're dropping barrier for this, at least in PvP for Disc. For Shadow, there's a lot of changes here. Psychic Link now causes direct damage spells to inflict 15% of their damage on all targets afflicted by your Vampiric Touch within 40 yards, was 25%, so a little bit less cleave damage with Mind Blast. Void Spike damage to enemies within 10 yards of the target reduced by 30%. Devouring Plague damage increased by 12. This will not be in PvP. Mind Blast, Void Bolt, Mind Flay Insanity, Mind Spike, and Mind Spike Insanity, Shadow or Death are all getting 12% damage buffs that will not apply in PvP. Prayer Mending is going to cost 10% of your base mana up from 4, and Power Word Life is going to cost 10% of your base mana up from 4, and Renew is now going to cost 8% of your base mana up from 4. Now, I think it's the passive healing effects that Shadow has that's having more impact when it comes to PvP, so this likely is something maybe for Mythic Plus that Shadow Priests were abusing more, because these changes are for PvE mostly specifically. So I don't think this mana change will have much impact for Shadow. For Resto Shamans, we're seeing a 5% healing increase. You know, I've seen practically no Resto Shamans anymore. I don't know what it is, and I've been playing 9 hours a day. You can check the link to my stream in the description down below. I've been raging playing a healer, and I haven't seen a single Resto Shaman, maybe one time. So nice to see a little buff here for Resto Shaman. The range of Restorative Mist heals from Ascendance is now 40 yards Up from 20, and the initial burst healing from Ascendance will still remain at 20. Okay, so it's the initial burst that's a really big impact, but nice little kind of ability to AoE heal your team from a larger distance, which will help because you can't really control your teammates, especially in solo shuffle with where they're going to stand. Prot Warrior, you're just getting a 7% damage increase across the board, and now the PvP changes. This is the big ones that we really wanted to see what would happen. Are they going to hit the right nail on the head and get this delivered successfully? So there are a few additional PvP specific changes that we planned for next week's reset, but we are still discussing specifics. We plan to update this thread on Monday with further details. Remember, hit the subscribe button because there could be even more. For Balance Druid, New Moon, Half Moon, and Full Moon are no longer going to deal 20% increased damage in PvP, so bringing down the damage of these spells, pretty obvious change. For Alkin Adept, it's only going to reduce the cast time by 10% down from 15, so Cyclones are going to be a little bit slower and easier to kick. High Wind's PvP talent is only going to reduce healing and damage by 15% and only last 3 seconds. It was previously 30% and 6 seconds. It's still likely going to be a pretty decent talent to pick up because if you clone someone on their cooldowns and they trinket, you're still going to want like some mitigation against the amount of damage that they're getting, but it's not going to be lasting for such a prolonged period of time and really debilitating games from ending. Umbral's Embrace is now going to increase the damage of Starfire or Wrath by 15% in PvP, down from 20. They must have saw Sam I Am's Wrath build. I feel like he's the only Moonkin doing that. I'm honestly surprised to see that they targeted this, considering Wrath and Starfire, generally speaking, are pretty low on the damage profile. For Augmentation Evoker, this is a big, talking point, like what's going to happen with this one. Ebon's Might is going to increase the Evoker's damage. Ebon's Might's increase to the Evoker's damage is no longer 40% more effective in PvP combat. So that's a nerf. Eruption damage is now increased by 25% in PvP combat, down from 50. That's likely compensating for the 40% buff up above. Upheaval damage is now increased by 25% PvP, up from 15. That is a big buff. This spell is hitting like 250k. This is the one shot, and this is going to make you one shot. So that's a big buff. The damage bonus from Tectonic Locus is now reduced 70% in PvP combat, and all healing done is now reduced by 10% in PvP combat. Dream Projection healing is now reduced by 25% in PvP combat. The absorption effect from Molten Blood is now reduced by 30% in PvP combat. And Born in Flame now lasts 3 seconds, down from 6. Burnout from Born in Flame is no longer dispellable. So really targeting their healing and bringing down their kind of like, prot paladinness, which is going to make sense. But probably just still a better Devastation Evoker is the way that this is going to land in my mind. But hopefully it's not going to be just dragging games on indefinitely. And they say, wait till Monday. We'll have to see if there's anything more to this. But your personal damage seems to be getting better, but your buff damage is going to be lower. For Beast Mastery Hunter, we are increasing Barb Shot's bleed damage as we'd like to decrease the damage differential between attacking high armor and low armor targets for Beast Mastery Hunters. It's honestly a really good change. There's a lot of classes like this that aren't viable because they do just no damage to high armor targets. Marksmanship Hunter is one of them. Fury Warrior is one of them. So Barb Shot is no longer going to deal decreased damage by 10%. So they got the 15% buff above and now 10% on top of that. Beast Mastery Hunter is going to be doing a lot of damage. Pay attention to that. For Mage, Master Shepherd is going to increase your versatility by 12%, up from 6. And this is where the big spells that were previously otherwise like totally overlooked are coming into discussion for Mage. Arcanosphere is getting a 25% damage increase. Arcane Missiles is getting a 7% damage increase in PvP. Arcane Orb is getting a 30% damage increase, and Nether Tempest, the spell that had been lost and forgotten forever, is getting a 150% damage bonus increase. Now, it is one of those spells that you need a remarkably huge number to even notice a difference in PvP, and I was wondering if they were going to target spells like this that were previously kind of fun, maybe add some different flavor to a class specifically, but for whatever reason, in PvP they do no damage, and it's probably because in PvE, when you can hit a billion targets, this spell is really strong, can't do a lot of damage, but in PvP, when you're only hitting one, then it's really pathetic and weak and needs a giant PvP modifier to compensate for that. So this could be that modifier. This could be the time to check out Arcane. The Arcane Dream is still alive and kicking. For Fire Mage, we're offsetting a few recent damage reduction adjustments and greatly increasing the damage of Living Bomb with the goal of making it a viable talent option in PvP. Pyroblast damage increased by 18% in PvP combat was 12%. Fire Blast damage reduced by 3% in PvP combat was 8%, so they actually just gained damage bonus to Pyroblast and Fire Blast. Phoenix Flames damage increased by 22% in PvP, up from 16%, and Living Bomb is getting a 300% increase in PvP combat. And Living Bomb in Wrath of Lich King, super fun spell to press. In retail, not so much. So this could do it. 300% is a pretty big number. It could do it, but again, it still may not be big enough. We'll have to wait and see what happens on Monday. But definitely make sure you're checking out these talents and slotting them in to see how they go. For Frost specifically, we would like Ray of Frost to remain a threatening cast, but still feel it's slightly more lethal than we'd like. Frostbolt's damage has fallen behind on other options, so we're increasing its damage to reward casting. Snowdrift's activation has felt a little too difficult for the amount of risk involved, so we're reducing the time to trigger the stun effect. Cryopathy is now 50% effective in PvP combat with 60%. Frostbolt's damage is getting a 50% damage increase from 100 to 150, and Snowdrift will stun targets after 2 seconds down from 3, so trying to enable mages to do more damage. Now, Mage, I think, was one of the sleeper classes that was pretty good, that would have crept up pretty fast with Balance Druid nerf, so we might be getting a Mage Overlord return after this, but these spells are pretty fun for Frost Mage specifically, and it's going to tone down potentially the instant damage options. I don't know if this is still enough to compete with the Ice Lance builds currently, though. For Priest, Angel's Mercy's cooldown reduction is now 25% effective in PvP combat, and I do believe that this is the Desperate Prayer, if I'm not mistaken, which is the big culprit for why Shadow Priests are just so durable and impossible to take down. So targeting the spell is definitely important. For Shadow, this was another annoying one that they got. Mind Trauma is now only going to steal 2% haste down from 4, and it's going to stack up to 9 times with 6. And from Darkness Comes Light is now going to stack up to 25 times in PvP combat down from 50. And I believe that this is a healing nerf specifically. If I'm not, let me know in the comments down below for Shadow. So targeting their healing, targeting their annoying mind trauma effect. It's still not, I still hate that it's in the game. I feel like stealing a stat from classes and then making them really slow is just a mechanic that has not felt good. That's the reason that they removed Spell Warden from Death Knight, and they removed the goat, tongues effect from Miss Pandaria with the pets that hunters had. It's just not fun to have your stat removed and then your character doesn't function at 100%. Windwalker. So developers notes, Windwalker's damage profile is more bursty than we would like, so we're moving more of its damage into base rotational spells, as we saw with the buffs to its damage are up above. Rising Star critical strike damage bonus is now 50% in PvP combat. Serenity now increases damage and healing by 10% down from 15, and Whirling Dragon Punch is getting a 40% damage increase in PvP combat. So trying to tag a little bit less crit damage during Serenity and just have more damage throughout the game, which is likely going to make you even scarier than you already are, to be honest. For Elemental, they're buffing Control the Lava, so your Flame Shock dispels is something I know that I've been abusing, at least on my Priest, is spam dispelling Flame Shocks. I might not be able to do that so easily if it's doing 40% more damage, and the same is so for Enhancement Shaman's Flame Shock. Resto Shamans are only going to regenerate 700 mana per second at max level in PvP, down from 800. This is important because Resto Shaman's mana is probably one of the few remaining mana pools that are pretty limitless. For Warrior, you're getting some pretty juicy buffs. Slam is going to be doing 85% damage increase in PvP, up from 48. Slam is still a pretty pathetic spell, so wait and see on if this is actually going to be a big enough number to note anything here. But if you got talents that orient around Slam, you may want to give them a go. Developers notes, we are increasing the damage of Blade Storm baseline and removing some power from the Unhinged talent, as its damage could be unpredictable for both the warrior and their enemies. We're also increasing the damage of Overpower to increase Arms Warrior's consistent pressure. Overpower is getting a 10% damage increase, Blade Storm is getting a 40% damage increase, and Mortal Strike is getting a 10% increase baseline, but the Unhinged Mortal Strikes are 60% less effectiveness. Oh, okay, so it's a 40% nerf to it, but it's got 10% buff, so it's like a 30% overall nerf. Maybe you still play it. Warrior definitely need a little bit of love in this patch, I think. And for Fury specifically, we are increasing the damage of a few Fury Warrior spells we feel are not impactful enough in PvP. Execute is getting a 15% damage increase, and Onslaught is getting a 15% damage increase, and Ravager is getting a 30% increase. Now, I didn't know anybody even played this. Pretty frustrating ability to use. I don't know if 30, it's not really enough that's like alluring me to try it on my Warrior, at least. But the Onslaught is definitely making me consider the Onslaught build that I wasn't previously playing. I was playing the Bloodthirst spam build, so definitely interested to check that out. We got some really big changes coming in here. It could be a completely different game come Tuesday, and remember, it's weekly inflation increase, so our numbers are going up every week as well. So seems like a pretty cool time to come back to the game. That just unlocked Conquest. You can send Conquest to your alts now through boxes. Healers get extra added Conquest when they're playing the game, even if they don't do well in their lobby. You're still going to get at least 50 Conquest per round, or per shuffle, I should say. So it seems like a pretty good time to come back. They've targeted a lot of core things that were problematic and addressed them in ways I think that are going to have significant change on the game. So definitely excited for this on Tuesday. We'll have to wait for Monday because they said there might even be more. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this update, and I will see you in the next one.